Welcome to the Unleashed Life, where ambitious women take control of their mindset, money, and mastery. I'm your host, Dr. Renée Baker. Let's get unleashed. Welcome to the Unleashed Life. I am your host, Dr. Renée Baker, and today's episode is about unlocking the wonder in your woman. Yes, you heard me right. Your wonder. Sometimes we inherit beliefs like heirlooms, beautiful on the outside, but heavy and outdated, and never really ours to carry. Today's guest, Rosie Ortiz, is a TEDx speaker, I should say international TEDx speaker, an empowerment coach, and creator of the Wonder in Your Woman movement. Rosie didn't just break those generational mindsets. She built an entire movement around helping women do the same. So, if you've ever felt trapped by someone else's expectations, today's conversation is your permission slip to live differently. Welcome to the Unleashed Life, Rosie. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here, Renée. Thank you for having me.
Well, Rosie, I love your story. I've heard you speak and following you along on social media. And and everything that I've saw about you so far, it's like your journey didn't start where you are now. It started with a moment where you made a choice and you said enough is enough. So let's talk about what was that defining moment for you and how did it launch everything you're doing today?
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, so excited to be here. And that's such a wonderful question, Renée. A lot of movements are born just because they're great ideas, but there are so many other movements that are born because pain can be a bridge into purpose if we allow it to be. And
Right.
I have to be honest with you, that is where Wonder in Your Woman started. It began from a time in my life. It wasn't like one specific moment, but it was more, I would say, like an era in my life where I had been married for 17 years. And
Mm.
to say that that marriage was not healthy is an understatement. It really wasn't good. It wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't healthy for my girls. And after pretty much coming out of denial and realizing that this was just not going to work any longer, and taking that brutal step of going through a divorce like so many women do. And then after that, experiencing a time of healing and realizing, like, wow, all that I was so scared of doing, I was so scared of taking this step. And I finally did. And I'm so better off because of it. And then wanting to share my experience with other women because I realized, you know what, I'm not the only one who's been through this, and I'm certainly not the last one. And now I want to share what I've been through with other women and provide them with little nuggets of truth that can maybe make this whole process easier for them. So that's where it started.
As challenging as I'm sure that time was for you, I love that you did that and that you can set the example for so many of us that think change has to be this huge, complicated process. And it is, but it often starts with that one decision to face your truth and decide that your life will never be the same because usually everything we want is on the other side of fear. But that first step is one that is usually the hardest. So, how did you even get to this space to say, let me go for it, let me make the leap to make that change?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to sound funny, but I'm going to share a quick story with you of that moment and where that actually happened for me. I have always been a fan of Wonder Woman. I remember being a little girl and watching the reruns of Wonder Woman as a little girl in the 80s. I'm dating myself. Yes, I know. And there was a costume contest at work. At the time, I was a 9 to 5er and I worked at a local nonprofit here in the Tampa area. And there was a costume contest that was the reward for winning it was going to be a paid day off. And when you're a 9 to 5 person, those
That's
PTOs, they're everything. So
that's
I
right.
was determined to win. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to dress up as my childhood fantasy of being Wonder Woman. And so I pieced this costume together. And here I was the day of the costume contest and I won, right? So I go home excited because I have this paid day off now added to my bank. But I went home with something a little bit bigger that I wasn't aware of yet. And that was the fact that things started to change from that point on. there was something I noticed. I noticed that when I had these boots on in the costume, I came home and I kind of wanted to stomp around in these boots at home and just kind of be in the costume. And then something hit me and I said, why do I feel like this? Like, I can't possibly go out into the world wearing these boots. I mean, they're cute and fabulous and all, but there's no way that I can walk out unless I have these imaginary boots on. But there was
Right.
something about that costume that made me I guess, come back in touch with something that I had felt as a little girl. And what
Wow.
it was confidence and it was ability. And it started to, the more that I dove into those feelings and why I was having them, I started to realize, this is something that I've lost. I've lost my wonder. And that's where the whole wonder in your woman started. It started for me, going into these deep places in my life to try and rekindle what was once there, try and find it. And the amazing thing was that, yeah, you can lose it because life happens sometimes, but you
Wow.
can also get it back. And so I wanted to share that because I know that there's so many women who, whether it's a divorce or whether it's, other things in their lives, have lost that wonder factor. And so I guess my mission is to just come back and remind them, no, you may have lost it, but you can come into contact with that again.
I do. Thank you for sharing that story. I love that story because you're right. I mean, so many times we've been taught or we've learned to shrink or dim our light. And I always say, even to myself, when I'm having a bad day, go back and who were you when before somebody told you who to be,
Yes. Oh,
right?
that's so good.
So that can be that costume for you could have been just a memory, a manifestation, a message
Yes.
to
Yes.
yourself. I am Wonder
Yeah.
Woman. Like, let me get back to my Wonder Woman. And it
That's
might not
it.
be the boots, but it could be the shoes. It could be the feeling. So you got back to yourself. And sometimes just stepping back into our power means that we have to put the cape back on that somebody else took
That's
off.
it. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly the way that it worked. I couldn't you phrased it correctly. I found myself. And yeah, I had been lost, but it was something, it wasn't the costume itself. It was just a reminder, yeah, that costume brought to me.
Right. And I love that you like tap into that feeling. Sometimes we're so focused on at least I'll speak for myself. And even as we were preparing to record today, I'm like, okay, am I the most polished looking version of myself? And sometimes that's not what we need in this moment. Sometimes we need to be the most powerful version of ourselves. And I just love you like, hey, wait, I got it back. Did you feel in that moment that it gave you permission to maybe what changed after that? Like take us a little bit on the journey if you don't mind.
I think what it caused is it caused me to start to question, hey, what happened? Something happened along the way that I don't even know what it was or where it was. And I really believe, Renée, that as little girls, when we come into this world and we start to connect with all these different things in life, be it a person or a character or someone in our family, that's so many different things for each of us.
Right.
But there's this sense of being intact when we're little, right? We believe anything is possible. We believe that we can do all the things and there's nothing in the world that can convince us that we can't. And then life starts to happen.
Right.
And so I feel like that's exactly what I was able to get in touch with, the missing link, if you will. When I realized that, my whole journey and my whole priority became to be like, it was like with those feelings started to resurface, all these desires, all these childhood desires that I had. And it was like, wait a second, they're gone. They're gone. But the fact that I'm kind of feeling these again, it means that they're still there. And it means that if I dig deep enough, that I can find them. And at the moment, I'm a big believer that we're holistic beings
Right.
and that if one area of our lives is kind of in shambles and we're just doing really, really bad in it, we may think that that particular area is the only area that we're suffering in. But it's almost like, when you have a bad piece of fruit and it's sitting in a bowl, if you leave it there, it's only a matter of time before that one piece of fruit starts to almost contaminate the rest. And then once before you know it, you kind of lift it up and they've all gone bad and you didn't even realize the moment that it happened. And I feel like that's what it is when we have a certain area of our lives. And in my case, that happened to be an area that's very impactful for a person, their spouse or their significant other. And this was something that I was dealing with every day. Mind you, I had been married at that point for about 17 years. And
Right.
so it was all I knew. And what I hadn't realized was that that particular area had began to bleed over into other areas of my life. It was now affecting my career. And I realized again, upon digging really deep, that I was really unsatisfied in that area too, and that I had become complacent. And my attitude about everything almost became, you know what, this is as good as it's going to get for me. It's as good as it's going to get. So I might as well just kind of, keep the pace and keep moving on and just take it for what it is. And until I realized, no, you know what? It doesn't have to be like this. And there is more available. I just have to want it bad enough to make the changes that are required so that I can begin to live that life, not just in one area, but again, as holistic beings all around.
I just love this story. And for everybody out there listening, I think it's just reminding yourself, we tend to compartmentalize, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that fruit metaphor, just kind of going back, that fruit metaphor hit me in my chest because we do that
Hmm.
and we compartmentalize. We're high achieving. And in one area, maybe in our career, we're doing our very best and we think we're shining and showing up while something else is riding quietly in the background.
Yes.
And when you talked about those desires starting to resurface, that's real. People are walking around here numb. One of my friends said, "Don't be a stone," right? Because
That's
you
good.
everything you ever dreamed of goes away. And we start becoming numb to that. But like you said, we get to choose differently and come back. And as long as we're still here, that means it's not too late.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you just said. We get to choose
We
differently.
get to choose
It
different.
gets to a point, I think, when we've endured so much or where we've gone through a thing or two that we kind of forget that we have a choice in this whole say. It is our life. But then we kind of, instead of taking a proactive role in it, we kind of just sit back on the sidelines and we wait for life to happen to us. And we forget that we have complete control over what goes on
Yes, thank you. My mother says life happens for us,
for
not
you.
to us.
Yes,
But we have a decision to choose. So for those that are listening, you need to pause for a second and think about what is your bad piece of fruit in your life.
yes,
And we get to choose to pull that out before it rots everything else. Because what happens is we ignore it, we downplay it, because it feels, even as you're telling the story, it feels so heavy to face. So, did you write it down? Did you say it out loud? Because that journey, what action can you share? Because that journey feels so scary.
absolutely. After the whole divorce process, and I'm not going to lie, it took a minute to get over, and I started to experience a little bit of healing, right? And at that point, I had gotten just a little brave, and I said, you know what? I want to share this with other women out there. And so the crazy thought came into my mind about, what if I record a short little video, just a small little snippet, and kind of put it out there into this whole social media world and see what happens? Maybe it could help someone. And I said that just because there were things that I came across in my journey from other women that were out there that were really, really helpful for me.
Right.
And I have to tell you, Renee, the moment that that idea came in my mind, I was petrified. I was petrified and I was scared because I felt, even before putting it out there, I felt judged. There was a level of shame that I felt along with everything. And it almost felt like, well, who are you to have anything to say to anyone? Like, look at you and, your failure of a marriage or your failure of this or that and the third. And so hitting post in that very first video was probably one of the hardest things that I had to do. But it was also very therapeutic in a
Right.
way, because in the process of putting my thoughts together and thinking, what can I share? What can I share that can be of value and that
Mhm.
can offer hope to the next person that's hearing? it caused me to kind of dig in, but at the same time realize just how much healing had taken place thus far.
Wow, Rosie, that is powerful in and of itself, because oftentimes we judge ourselves so much. We silence ourselves before anyone else has a chance to get to. We reject.
Oh, yeah.
We disqualify ourselves
Yes.
before the conversation even shows up. And yet you did it scared and you posted it, and it
Yes.
unlocked a new version, or
Yeah.
a hidden version, I should say, because it wasn't new, it was there. You just had to find the wonder in your woman and then unlock this new version of Rosie, right? So you hit share, you post it, probably posted and ghosted because you're like, okay, let me just
Let me know that.
post. And then that led you into where you are in this moment today.
Yes,
So, what would
absolutely.
you say about to a woman in this moment who is afraid? And I do that too. Like, sometimes I'm massively unleashed, right? And then there are times like video, I'm like, oh no, no video. Um, so as you're talking to me and every other listener, what piece of advice can you give us to get over that and do like you did, face the fear and do it anyway?
I would say just like you mentioned before, so I'm kind of writing off your coattails, but yeah, do it scared.
Yes.
Anytime that you step out to do something that's kind of tugging at your heartstrings to do, it's gonna feel scary. It's gonna feel challenging, but that's the way that it's supposed to feel. If you're not feeling that, then you're not stretching yourself enough. So go ahead and take that first step. And if that means, just like me, that you hit post and then you sit there and you kind of, just kind of close your eyes to the whole thing, then that's what that means. But one of
Right.
the things that I've learned is that the way to get rid of fear is through action. So
Yes.
you have to step out and you have to do the thing. And then little by little, see, what does action breed? Action breeds confidence. And the moment that you start building your confidence, then that thing that you were so fearful of at some point, all of a sudden you start to realize, you know what, it wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, it was a little scary, but I can do it again. And then before you know it, you've just traveled so far in your new journey, right? So I
Right.
feel like if you want to do something, do it. Step out and do it. Don't let anyone stop you. Don't let sometimes we are our worst critic, right? And sometimes it's not even what people say, but it can be that inner voice that we have. And that inner voice, we have to realize, is always there, just kind of trying to protect us, is really what it's trying to do. But in that protection process, so many times it's actually just keeping us stuck. So there
Yeah.
comes a time that we have to say, shh, be quiet. I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it scared. And you just kind of throw yourself out there.
I love that. Yes, just do it scared. And I think for anyone who ever has had something on their heart to share, but shame kept you quiet,
Oh, yeah.
it's a reminder to, from what you said, to just do it anyway and do it scared. And I always, sometimes if I'm afraid, I'll call like the bravest person I know in whatever
Yes.
area. And I'll say, okay, I need you to talk me, like, or push me, but we need to learn how to have that brave inner voice be more powerful than the voice that's keeping us safe. Because, like the saying goes, but did you die? You're good.
Right?
Like, you're fine. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that you shared that. And I want to pivot a bit because you did this amazing TEDx talk,
Thank
which
you.
I love, by the way, and it'll be in the show notes. Everybody watch this TEDx talk that Rosie did, but you shared this wild story about in the 1890s, and I didn't even know about this,
Oh,
this
yeah.
bicycle craze, and doctors made up something called the bike face, and that's to scare women out of riding bikes.
So,
Um,
yeah.
what?
So, in a nutshell, basically, yes, almost correct.
Okay,
So what it was back in the 1890s, right? This group of women, they came together, and when women get together, things start to happen, right?
happened. Yeah,
It's revolutionary anytime that you get a group of women together.
that's right.
And so the women started to come together, and the women started to realize, you know what? We are not happy with what we're doing. What are we doing? Or the expectation from the world, from their neighborhood, from their communities at the time, was that they would remain home and that they would be caretakers and homemakers and raise children. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but there was a group of women that weren't happy with that. They felt that they had so much more to give to society, to be out there in the workforce and to be out there in their communities and in the schools and in all the places. So they thought of this brilliant idea and they said, you know what, let's ride a bike,
Ah,
because their issue was that they had no mode of transportation at the time. Well, when they started to ride the bike, people started to get uncomfortable because, Renee, it's the truth is there's always a hater or two or
always.
more out there.
Get more. Now,
Yeah.
you need to know
And
something.
right. So people started to get uncomfortable. The haters started to get uncomfortable. And the haters came up with a brilliant idea. And by brilliant, I mean really dumb. But their idea was, you know what? Let's start to tell these women that if they continue to ride the bike, that there's this new disease. Okay. Yeah. That's what they called it, a disease out there. And it's called bike face. And if they ride it, they can suffer from this. And basically, it's going to give them a kind of ugly look in their face. Yeah. And they're going to get like mental weariness from doing this. And they're going to suffer a locked jaw, and they came up with all these crazy things that really were just symptoms, if you will, let's call it like that, of someone who's trying something for the first time. If you ever look at a little kid who's trying to ride a bike for the first time, there's that kind of petrified look on their face. And it doesn't mean they're sick or have some sort of disease. They're just trying something for the first time, right? So the haters came up with this idea saying, you know what? You're going to get bike face. And it was all to stop the women from being out in the spaces.
Wow.
And so that's what they did. But until a doctor came around and said, you know what, that's actually not necessarily true. That none all
There it
those
is.
things that you're seeing, yeah, all those things that you're seeing, they're just part of someone trying something new. In this case, riding a bike.
Wow. I was like, bike face. I had never heard of this, fortunately, I guess. So when I was listening, I was like, wow, bike face. And isn't that what happens, right? Like the haters show up because you're out here. Let's say, you're riding your bike and whatever that is, that bike is for you, right? It
Correct.
might be stepping out, like, maybe it's, for me, it was don't quit that job, right? It was, it could be for you, it's like maybe don't leave that relationship, don't dream too big, don't be too much. But you, like you said it in your TED talk, those warnings, and even in this conversation, those warnings are really about controlling you, not
That's it.
protecting you. They kind of keep you in your space and place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's really interesting that they would come up with their own movement just to stop women from moving forward. And we all had these bike face moments in our lives, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to ask ourselves, like, what is the metaphorical bike that we need to ride anyway?
Mm-hmm. And it's
Just
different.
right for everybody.
It's different for everybody. And it's just like you said, we're all trying that new thing at some point in life, right? And if we let the haters or the people that are out there that are opposed to it, if we let them get into our ear, then we're never going to be able to be successful at anything new. We're going to experience all the symptoms, the crazy feelings, just like the
Mhm.
ladies back in the day. We're going to experience that. But are we going to allow that to stop us? And I really believe, Renee, that though bike face was something back from the 1890s, we have our own
Yeah.
version of that going on these days, with trying to stop women from advancing. And we're living in a day and age where there's so many minority women that are out there just movers and shakers and doing the thing. But there's still people out there that feel like, you know what, let's put them in their place. Let's remind them that if they go out and if they try this thing, they can experience bike face too. And so all that really is limiting beliefs. They're trying to impose limiting beliefs into our lives to get us stop from being in the places and in the spaces. And it takes really strong women that have had mindset shifts and that understand that that's all to keep them stuck. And we're not staying stuck anymore. We're moving forward.
Oh, I love that. And for everyone that is watching and listening, that is so important. I mean, that one person might say something to you, or you hear one person, like you said, try to just say, you know what, why would you do that? Why, who do you think you are? And anyone that has ever tried to do something that's different or kind of shows up, probably you more than likely had that experience, especially for us as women, especially for us as women, minority women and women of color. It's like, who do you think you are? Like, how dare you have the
Right.
audacity to want more? And some of that stuff, it becomes generational, right? So we might not just hear from other people, we might have had that mindset passed down to us, like you've said,
Yes.
as an heirloom.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what was like one of those beliefs, because we
Yeah.
get those beliefs, they pass down and they help keep us stuck, but we have had to learn how to break them. So what do you say about that? Because you definitely spend a lot of time talking about how to start breaking those generational mindsets.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Renee, I'm going to tell you about two that kind of overlapped for me
Okay.
at one point in time. When I was trying to come out of, here we go. Sorry about that. When I was trying to come out of that toxic marriage that I was in, one of the things that held me back was a generational mindset. Now, generational mindsets sometimes present themselves as part of our personality, or we think that it's just always belonged to us. But when
Right.
we start to, again, dig deep, we start to realize that these are things that are passed down. So sometimes those limiting beliefs are passed down to us by people that we love, by our
Right.
parents, by parental figures that we had growing up. And those things, for me, that looked like, you know what? You stay in a marriage. That's the thing you do. It looks good for the family. It's healthy for the kids. And when I think about all the adults that or let me not say all, but a lot of the adults that I grew up around,
Mm.
that was very prevalent. You could, even me as a little kid, I could look at them and I could say, I'm not sure that that marriage is very healthy, or that those people seem very happy in it. But the example that was passed down, because again, sometimes these are silent examples, we just kind of know they're unspoken, right?
That's right. That's
You just stay in it. And that was what was passed down to me. You stay in it. And I really believe that that's the reason why I stayed in it so long. I think until one day when I realized, you know what, no one is going to give me a reward for staying at the end of days. No one's going to say, here, let me, give you this reward. Let me put this pin on your chest because you stayed in it. You endured so long. And I think that that was one of my moments. Now, along with that, one of the generational mindsets that's very prevalent, for example, in the Latino community is, you know what? It's very common for us. You rely on your husband. You can rely on your husband for in the financial way, and you rely on a man to support you. And though there's nothing wrong, I want to put that out there, though there's nothing wrong if that's your situation and you're in a happy marriage and maybe you're home and your husband works and that works for you, that's great. But I believe that as women, at least what I'm trying to pass on to my daughters is you can be your own person. You don't have to find the man that you rely on to be able to keep up with all the things, to get you the nice car, to get you the nice house. And that was another generational mindset that kept me stuck in that marriage, because my biggest fear was, I'm not going to be able to do this alone. I can't.
Mhm.
I can't possibly leave this marriage because nothing is in my name. My house is in my name. Even the car that I drove at the time wasn't in my name. And my
Wow.
credit wasn't great. And I had all these financial issues going on and I felt stuck. But at the core of of my situation were those two generational mindsets. You stay in it because it's what we do. That's how we do it around here. You stay in it. And also because you need this man to provide for you. Both of which I've since done away with and am passing away new mindsets to my daughters.
I know that's right, Rosie. I know
Mhm.
that's right, because I mean, I'm married, but I still believe that a man is not a financial plan. And if that works well for you, like you said, to each
Yeah,
their own.
sure.
However, like you said, a lot of us are walking around with these silent expectations that are stitched in our DNA, right? Like, don't leave the marriage, don't rock the boat, don't mess up the picture, do what is stable, like stay in the same job, leave the town. I mean, even when I left, I mean, this is a small thing. I have other bigger things, but even moving, I'm from New Jersey. You don't leave New Jersey.
Yep.
I was like, who do you think you are? What do you mean you're leaving? What do you mean you're leaving our small town? You're going to go work in New York City? Like, what is this? Who do you think you are? But we don't do things for the sake of optics, right?
Correct.
It's a liberating feeling. We have to take control, and we don't have to just survive. We can actually thrive.
Yes.
and new heirlooms, you say, right?
New heirlooms, exactly. Like just the same way we had those passed on to us, we can create new ones to pass on.
Right. No one's giving you a medal, like you said. No one's giving you
Mm-hmm.
for your silent suffering and enduring.
That's it.
Yes. So if you're listening and you are also inheriting some heirlooms, because we all have them, you need to think about, what do you need to unlearn? What do you need to kind of put to the side and stow away, so it doesn't belong to you anymore. It's a
Exactly.
So as we, continue our conversation, you said earlier that, the best way to get through fear is action. And right now, there's someone who's scared of something, right? Whether they're disrupting their family, leaving their career, cultural expectations. But what will you tell people? What's another bold, uncomfortable step that they can make to start shifting their life forward? Like, go, just do it. And what else?
Yeah. So I think one of the very, very first steps is stepping out of denial,
Mm,
right? Stepping out of denial and realizing just because something worked for my mom or my dad or my sister or my aunt or whoever doesn't mean that it works for me. And I
right.
think that our fear of disappointing our family sometimes is a part of the reason why we stay stuck. And it's completely okay. Like, let me give you permission today to really analyze your life and think, is this working for me? And if it's not, realizing it's okay to step forward and to raise up different standards that maybe aren't common in your family, right?
Right.
So it all begins with one person. Change begins with one person. And it can be you if you decide that it's going to be. And then another practical step I would say is, sometimes I always tell my girls it takes a minute for our minds sometimes and our heart and our feelings to catch up with what we tell ourselves. So
Right.
I'm a very big proponent. I actually have a talk in a workshop called power posing.
Mm,
And it's basically learning the mind and the body connection, and how sometimes you can try doing these different power poses. Obviously my favorite one is the Wonder Woman
yeah.
pose, but how standing in these poses along with the things that you tell yourself eventually start to build up your confidence. So if you are a woman who is out there and you're trying to do a new thing and you're trying to get rid of these old heirlooms and try something new, something that works for you, and you don't feel that you have the confidence or the courage, I say start kind of talking yourself into it. If you don't want to do the power posing because you feel a little weird, that's fine. But you know what? Some people call them affirmations. Other people might say for example biblical scriptures. I happen to use those,
Yeah.
and I happen to use kind of like a mix of several things that work for me. And you would be surprised what happens when you start to rehearse these things on a daily basis. Remind yourself of who you are. And you might say, you know what, Rosie, but I don't really believe that. I don't really believe that I can do all the things. And I don't really believe that. It's okay, because
Right.
if you say it enough, you're going to start to believe it. So if you say it enough times, eventually your mind believes it and your heart catches up to it. And that's a great tool and a great step to start invoking change in your life.
I love that, because let's be delusional. Like, I have
Yeah.
audacity. I'm delusional enough to think
Hmm.
that I can do it, right? And we have to give ourselves permission to normalize building whatever that confidence cocktail is for you, that's going to get you aligned, whether it's a power pose, is it an affirmation, if it's Psalms or Proverbs, whatever that
Yes.
is. I like to talk to myself like it in the mirror. It's like, okay, girl,
Yep.
get it together, take up space. Or um, I'll do a big movement where I'm taking up
Yes.
space. And someone told me a long time ago, well, maybe it wasn't that long, but I was really nervous. I'm very nervous around video. Like, it is still, I have to change. I'm changing my mindset after this. You're going to see me do more video. It was inhale confidence, exhale doubt. And that's
Yes.
what I do when I would get on stage, is like, Inhale confidence, exhale doubt. And that really helped me. So whatever that thing that you can do to save yourself, to start applying it, start it right now, because it's powerful to realize when you realize that you have control over your own life and your decisions, and we can speak power into ourselves. That's a Wonder Woman. So get your bracelets and your voice.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It absolutely works. I stand here. You know how there used to be that commercial about the hair pieces, and the guy used to say, I'm not only a member, I'm also, or the president, I'm also a client or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I am not only the president of this movement. I am telling you this works. I do this myself. I do this myself every single morning. Even before I start my day, it is so important for me to just kind of sit down and have for me, it's my devotional time, right? But at the end of
Yes.
my devotional time, it's always accompanied by all these things. I'm working on things that are challenging me too. And there's mornings that I wake up and I don't really have the confidence. It's almost like I lost it overnight and I have to find it
I did
somewhere. And you know where I find it? I find it there. I find it in reminding myself of who I am and the things that I am capable of doing. And, sometimes I don't feel it, just like I mentioned before. But if I say it enough, then eventually I start to walk in it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rosie. It's like you're bringing your power every morning, like you're calling your power back.
Yes.
And you talk about that, you teach like the power of community, the power of our voices, the power of one. And I'm curious, which one of these saved you first
Yeah, that's a great
out of all of
question.
them? Yeah.
The power of community, absolutely, definitely, 100%. Um, it is imperative that we are constantly checking who our community is. Who are those people that are around us and are speaking into our lives? Because those people have direct influence.
Right.
I like to think that some people are main characters in our story, some people are supporting roles, and then there are the extras, and the extras don't really count, okay, as you can imagine. But yeah, it's important who our community is, and that's where I found what I needed. Now, I will tell you, sometimes when you're going through a very personal moment, it can feel very intimidating to share, and it can feel intimidating to go out there and to tell your story and to say what's going on, at least while the healing is happening. And what happened for me was, community isn't just the people that are around you. Find community in all the resources that are available to us on a daily basis. There
Very
is
true.
information overload anywhere about any subject that you want. And that's exactly what I did. I said, you know what? I'm going to start reading books. On social media, there was a lot of women out there, and I'm not just talking, women with masses of following. I'm talking about everyday women that were out there maybe sharing their story, and I was admiring them, and they were an inspiration to me, and I was kind of like silently watching from the background what their next move was and how it was that they would do the things. And then as far as building myself up financially, which I was in desperate mode from, I said, you know what? I'm going to start watching all these YouTube videos. And that was part of my community at the time.
That's great.
And I would follow certain people and people that had been in kind of similar situations to mine. And I just watched them from a distance. Community can be someone as simple as your mom,
Right.
finding that person that you're really connecting with, that is going to give you support from a real authentic and sincere place, and sharing your story with them and saying, you know what, I'm going to need your support along the way. So though the word community implies a lot of people, it doesn't have to start off that way. It can start off with just one person at a time.
I love that. Thank you. And it's just, just a reminder to people that you can just start right now. Just start
Yes.
applying it, but because just by one person. Oftentimes we think we have to have it all figured out, or I don't know. And I can even say personally, I've been in situations where I'm like, well, I don't know who can I share this with, or who can I trust about this? But you do find community, like you said, and there's so many different ways that we can build the
Yes,
community to build us up to be able to take that step. Right. So that's really
absolutely.
powerful. And I appreciate that you are sharing that. So if as you're talking to me today and listeners are listening, they're probably thinking, how can I start applying that right now? Like what is it that I need to do? What we tell them.
Yeah, I would definitely just say that. Look at the people around you. And you're not going to share all the things with all the people. Back when I used to work my 9 to 5 job, I had like my bestie from work, right? And I would share all the work stuff with her. And then I also had my church friends, and I would share different types of things, more things that I need your support with prayer in this, or this is what's going on. And I would share those things with them. So I would almost like compartmentalize who I was going to share what with. But what I will say is you do want to share. Find that one person that you can share. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe you need a coach. Maybe you're not comfortable with your immediate family or your immediate friends, and maybe you want to find a coach, but find someone that you can share. When we keep things to ourselves, I find is when we feel like we're the only person in the world that's going through whatever the thing is that we're going through. But there's something about like taking the lid off and sharing with someone. Again, even if it's only one person, sharing what's going on, because perspective is everything. And that person might be able to provide us with a perspective that we had never thought about. And
Right.
so, absolutely, just going out there. And again, maybe it's your mom. I
Yeah.
don't know what your relationship with your parents are, and not everyone has the best one, and that's for sure. But
Mhm.
my mom is someone that I could turn to. My sister is someone that I could turn to. And so in that same manner, just looking around and finding who that person that maybe you admire, or that person who's been through something. There's one thing I want to add on to this, Renee.
Yes.
When you are going through something like I was at that time, there women want to share. Have you ever
Yes.
noticed that if someone compliments me, say for example on a purse that I have or shoes that I have, oh my god, those are great shoes, the first thing I want to say is, oh my god, yeah, girl, and
Yeah.
let me tell you where I got them, and let me
Yeah.
tell you the deal. We want to share our
That's right.
success. We want to share our victories. We want to share those moments where we feel like, you know what? I did this thing. I did it, right? And women are like that about all things. So if you were going through something, you would be surprised when you find that one right person to share
Right.
with, or
Right.
that woman who has already been. She wants to tell you. She's dying to tell you her experience and how she was able to get over that thing and make it all the way to where she's at. She wants to share her stories of success. So, yeah.
That is so true, Rosie. So thank you for that reminder. Sometimes people think, no, we don't want to share, but you find the right person and you say,
Oh, yeah.
that's something happened to me. Like, okay, you're going through this challenge. Okay, here's what worked for me, girl. Go get you some of this, go get you some of that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm all very close with my mom, and she is my truth. She's going to tell it like it is, and she's always been
Hmm.
that way. She says, "You can't hear it from me." With love, I mean, who are you hearing it from? But I know she loves me. But she also said, if you sit in your own sugar honey iced tea, you are going to get burned. So you need to be able to talk about things because we can't solve everything sitting in the same mess that we're already in.
That is correct.
And I love
100%
that.
correct.
And it gives us an opportunity. It starts to free ourselves. And I want to get to something that you said earlier around a lot of times the conversations when it comes to finances, we get really tight about it. I mean, I spent my career working in finance, but in the beginning it wasn't an easy topic for me to talk about openly. But I like the way that you said that finances is freedom. And what does that freedom look like? Sometimes it's not always money, but how you frame the conversation about freedom. Like I call it living my unleashed life. I call
Hmm.
it freedom and wealth in the ways that matter to you, because wealth means different things to different people, and I love how you frame it. So what my question then is, how did you frame that moment for yourself to set you to start building that freedom beyond your finances, and how does that look, especially with your daughters?
Yeah. So, I always say, we're not going to lie to ourselves.
Right.
Finances are important.
That's right.
Money is important. Having our finances in order is important. And if you don't, if you don't have all that in order right now, and if you're not making the amount of money that you want to make right now, that doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you're going to have to put some work into it, and some time is going to have to pass. And time is usually the part that we're not comfortable with, right?
Right.
But after some time passes and the days are going to go by, whether you're being proactive about your situation or not. But at
Okay.
some point down the line, just like me, I started by, you know what? I need to fix my credit. I need to reach out to these creditors and I need to make everything right. I need to start to build my credit little by little. I'll tell you a quick story, Renee. There was one time shortly after the divorce had passed, and my girls are thinking, you know what, mom, can we kind of redecorate the living room? Our couch is so ugly. And it really was. It was just like
Yeah.
this eyesore. And so can we just do a couple of little things to kind of change it up in here? And of course, I'm like, yeah, yeah, for sure. So we go to the furniture store and there was a couch. I'm trying to be as modest as possible. And we find a couch. It's $1,000 that I did not have in cash to pay for. So I go ahead with the process of applying for, for the loan to see if they could do this. Mind you, I had just kind of barely finished adjusting my credit. So now, it was in a decent place. And here I am doing this. And those 15, 20 minutes before they came back to give us the approval seemed like the longest
Oh,
ever,
that's
because in my head, I was already preparing the no. I was preparing the answer to my girls. Oh, you know what? It's okay. We don't really need the new couch. We can make it look different without our own. Well, when they came back and they gave me that yes, it was a couch. It is
uh,
crazy how significant something like that is for someone who's trying to build themselves up, because that one couch was proof to me that I could do it on my
that you
own.
could do
It
it.
was
Yeah.
proof to me that me and my girls would be absolutely fine. And that's what I mean by freedom. Passing those thoughts on to my girls. They're always watching. The kids are always watching. And
Even
just
as
passing,
adults.
yeah, passing that along to them, the fact that you can do life on your own. Yeah, you want to find a partner or whatever, but you're not depending on them financially. And so that's why I say, absolutely, when I'm no longer here, I am going to pass on whatever I have managed to build, monetarily speaking, to my girls. But it's more important to me to pass on freedom for them so that they're not stuck to any predetermined beliefs, so that they're not stuck in places where they feel they need to be because that was mom's expectation or my grandma's, or that's just the way we do it. So giving them that freedom to be authentically
Mhm.
them is just as important as giving them financial wealth, at least in my eyes.
That because we're all at different spaces and places, and someone out there is sitting in the middle of a moment that could change the trajectory of their life. And all they have to do is rewind, listen to what you said, and realize that sometimes freedom looks like a couch. Sometimes
Yep.
sometimes that freedom is a choice, but we all have the ability to make it. And I love that you said, you know what? Listen, as you get that couch, this is a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Now, listen, the future is what we're gonna have with a throw pillow and a financing plan, but
That's it.
we got to set it up. So I love that. And as I'm a mom of daughters as well, and they're adults now, but I know that they're always watching, and we don't realize that that mindset is the first thing. I always start with mindset, because if we don't believe that we're worthy, and we don't believe that we're enough, we don't believe that it's possible, then we won't move. So we have to change our mindset before we get to money. So I love that moment. And if you're out there, you're listening, listen, maybe it's something else for you. Maybe it's a car,
Yeah,
maybe your first apartment on your own, right?
absolutely.
Like when you walk away from whatever it is, but we can transform that and hit the fast forward button in our lives by making intentional choices. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. And I've loved this conversation. So as we're like starting to wrap up, one thing I do is I ask every guest on the Unleashed Life to share their unleashed moment. And that's like one experience, decision, or lesson that's changed everything for you. And now you've already shared so much today, and I'm so grateful. And hopefully, the listeners are as well. But is there another unleashed moment or something that you want to reiterate to the audience and how it shaped you?
Yeah. So Renee, for me, I think that for me personally, being unleashed is very intimately tied to walking out my purpose in life, and being able to recognize what that purpose in is, and then boldly walking in it. And some people have a purpose that's very obvious. Some people sing. Obviously, that's what they're going to do. Some people can play the piano. Some people play the violin, and other people cook. And it's very obvious. My purpose wasn't that obvious for a very long time. And the first time that I actually discovered my purpose was a long time ago. I used to make jewelry bracelets, and these were what I called bracelets that had a purpose, because I would write a story, and that particular story would go along with the bracelet. So when people bought the bracelet, it wasn't yes, it was the bracelet, but it was the story that was connected to that bracelet that prompted them to buy it, that made them connect with that piece of jewelry. And when they wore it, it reminded them of something. And I
Right.
think my unleashed moment was when because that kind of just started as a little side, kind of little fun, crafty kind of project. And I think hearing these women come back and saying, hey, I really connected with that story. There was, that story spoke to me in this way. It was the very first time that I discovered that I had a voice and that I had a message that I wanted to share with women. And though I didn't step on a platform to speak for many, many, many years later, it was my moment of becoming unleashed. It was my moment of realizing I have a voice. I will soon have a story, and I'll be able to share that. And that voice was in a written form at that time, and then now is obviously verbal when I go out and speak. So for me, that was my moment of being unleashed, realizing that I too have a gift, and we all have that gift. So yeah.
You are such an inspiration. And everything you said today was just so incredible. So, listen, for anyone listening, I think you need to listen to this episode and share this episode with your friends, and take a moment, take one belief that is not yours, one step that Rosie shared today, and act on it. Share your journey with someone you trust, and let this conversation be your permission slip to start your own unleash moment, find your own wonder in you as a woman. So, Rosie, thank you so much for bringing your voice, your fire, your wonder to the Unleashed Life. And can you tell listeners how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. So you can find me pretty much on all social media. My handle is at Wonder in Your Woman. My website is Wonder in Your Woman as well. And for those that might be interested, actually September 27th, I believe, is the day I'm actually having a book launch. So it'll be my second book. It's called Wonderlust, and it's basically a work about helping women to find self-discovery and inner fulfillment in all the areas of their life, again in a very holistic fashion. So you can find me through that book as well. And yeah, I appreciate any follows or any comments. And if you just want to email me, maybe there was something about our conversation today that kind of moved you or touched you, or you might have a question even, just know that I am available so that we can chat.
Love that. And yes, please do. That's how I found you. And I just want to thank you all for listening to the Unleashed Live. Thank you again, Rosie, for joining us today. If this episode stirred something in you, share it, leave a review, and send it to another woman or a person who needs this reminder, needs permission. Again, I'm Dr. Renée Baker, and I'll be back next week with more unleashed stories, more strategy. And I want everyone to know that no matter where you are in your life, we all get to choose. And once we make that decision, believe it or not, the best is yet to come. So thank you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on The Unleashed Life. I hope today's episode has inspired you to break free from financial constraints and societal expectations, cultivating a mindset of abundance and possibility. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and join our vibrant online community to share your own unleashed moments and connect with like-minded individuals. Until next time, keep breaking barriers, embrace your beautiful, authentic self, and live life unleashed.